So what is the difference between SD1, SD2 and SD3?
Ownership changes with SD1, SD2, SD3. Rather than my module, it's my service or my services coming to SD3 and so on.
What will happen to the coders?
These won't be highly paid jobs now. So if you're a coder and you're getting a good pay, expect it out, you need to pivot and you may need to compromise on the salaries out.
Right. What kind of engineering problems you are solving at Arya?
How do you use a AI for auditing those warehouses? How do you reduce your operational cost by having a more monitoring of those systems?
From the engineer's perspective, what changes from one vertical to another vertical?
Say if you look at the transactional services, the experience are similar. The only part, when you go to a financial services, it's a compliance check.
Why DS algo when you don't use it on a day-to-day basis?
Always required. Say how you break your code or design your code does better.
Do you think, developers or coders, they can, use AI, Gen AI to their advantage?
Gen AI really helps out. I have tried it out generally for my own self.
And how do you think has the market dynamics changed post-COVID?
I still feel that people live in that dilemma, that it is still a way high market.
Welcome guys to another episode of Tech with Sukant. Today we have Jatinder. He has worked in almost all the dream companies that every engineer aspires to be part of, and I think today he'll be sharing and spilling some beans how to get there and what it takes to be part of such dream team and dream companies. So Jatinder sir, how does it feel living the dream of all the engineers?
It's fun. I never thought of that way, but it's fun. So for me, every time I wanted to pivot it, either the role or the learnings. That's why I ended up in different companies and so on. But it was fun.
Yeah, but almost all the companies, Microsoft, then Flipkart,
Google is not
Express, Expedia, and almost all the aspirational companies.
Agree.
Which one do you like most out of all?
Okay. So different thing happened in a different companies and the roles. So Microsoft, I enjoyed it as a dev mostly. So it was a good work out there, spending out a lot of learnings, deep diving into the stuff and so on. Amazon is something which I loved it out most in terms of grooming your own leadership skills, building that team, managing and maintaining that high performance team. So that experience is more valuable than any other thing as a manager.
But Amazon is quite infamous for its work culture. I don't know that. I've been reading, like all the news articles and all. I might be wrong. So what do you think of that?
Okay. So if you say it's a work-life balance, it's a personal perspective always. Amazon pushes the people boundary for sure. There is always, we say that the bell curve comes into the picture at the end of the year. So performance are rigid. It's always comparative. It's always given the picture in terms of principles. Entire feedback is provided to the people, aligning it in a proper way.
So it's not very absolute. It's more of a relative.
It's always relative.
Okay. So that means that there are a lot of very good performers in Amazon.
True.
Probably, that's the reason there is so much competition that pushes all other individuals to their limits.
Exactly. So it happens like you always are trying to compete it out with the best of the best. Right? So you ended up doing a more hours. There are always two ways, right? One is I'm very, very smart, very intelligent, and I'll finish up everything in just like that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I have time with me to do whatever I want to do. And second is I don't have that much of capacity in that way, but I bring a lot of hours to ensure that I'm always competing.
Yes.
So this is the two different ways, and people are always competing it out.
Okay. So you have worked at almost all roles, SD1, 2, 3, manager, then director, then CTO. So people now typically don't know what's the difference. So what is the difference between SD1, SD2, and SD3?
Easy way to say it out is SD1 is someone who kind of like defines his own work and executes it out.
Okay.
SD2 is someone who defines his own work, executes it out, and defines it for his juniors as well as that way, and pull it up. Right? SD3 again takes a more accountability in terms of that work itself. The ownership changes with SD1, SD2, SD3. Rather than my module, it's my service or my services coming to SD3 and so on. So it becomes in that way. The ownership or a scope keeps on changing.
Okay. So after SD3, there is an option for folks to, there are two paths, either you move towards individual IC role or a people management role. So people typically wants, to move towards people management. I don't know why, but why is that? Why is, that is more in demand? Why do people want to become manager and not want to become very good engineers?
Either they are burned out by that time. One thing, it happens.
Yeah.
Second part is probably in India, we don't have a culture to see a strong IC leadership. We see it more like after a certain, because if you see a larger set of organization within our world is a services organization, and in services, if you are not moving towards a manager thing, that puts up a question mark that are you kind of like in the right path or are you growing even?
Yeah.
Right? So that is one of the question which comes out there. I guess that makes a lot of difference out there in people mindset.
Is it because India doesn't? There is not a lot of breakthroughs is happening in India.
Innovation
focus, right?
Yeah.
Is it because the lack of innovation that good ICs are not rewarded or appreciated that much? You think could that be a reason?
It's relative. Yes. The reason is if you have people. So basic idea of what I wanted to become, you see it out few role models.
Yes,
there,
yes.
Right? There are no net kind of like role model in India, or there are limited role model who kind of like grown as an IC in the company and have exhibited in that.
But do you think in India, even if we talk about very good product companies, there is a place for very good, let's say distinguished engineers? Because even if you look at companies like, let's say Microsoft, Salesforce, or Google, a lot of distinguished engineers are typically based out of US or Europe. India में है ही नहीं, वो role ही नहीं है बहुत ज़्यादा. Why is that?
That is something is changing over, I think. Now, if you look at Amazon, it has few principal engineers in India as well. But because it was a limited scope in a way, that these companies were also quite centrally managed from a Redmond or Seattle in case of Amazon, right? So if at a certain level you have growth in the India, after that, if you really wanted to grow as a strong IC or something, you have to move to Redmond.
Well, I think most of the product innovation is happening there.
Yes.
It's the execution is happening in India, but
execution is happening.
Yeah.
So it's more used as a talent pool to kind of like serve the
more just a development center, right?
So now if you see it out, there are larger products which are getting developed in India. So now it becomes a more product driven from the India itself. That's where you will see a more principal engineer or IC roles coming up. Like if I take an example of Flipkart, right? It's all based out of India. You will find a lot of senior ICs working out within the Flipkart.
So, not talking about Flipkart, you have worked both at Flipkart and Amazon, right? So, two huge players in e-commerce in India. In terms of tech, what are the 2-3 major differences which differentiates Flipkart and Amazon from each other, and who do you think has a better tech?
better tech. So yeah, I would say both companies are good. Uh, Amazon has a one advantage because it owned the AWS. It
Yeah.
built a lot of things in terms of a DevOps there, right? So you as a developer just go in there, right within that conventions, and rest things are taken care. So you're
care.
always taking a benefit of a cloud in that.
Yeah.
Flipkart is moving into leveraging those clouds. So it has its own data center built, invested its own energy in doing that exercise.
So they don't use any cloud. They have their own data centers.
They had their own data center. They are leveraging a GCP as a cloud as well.
Okay. Not AWS because they are competing, is it?
True.
Okay. Got it.
That's a natural part.
Yeah. No, obviously. Right. And, also, when we talk about, let's say e-commerce, and then you have also been into the financial industry, right? At MX.
Right.
So, from the engineer's perspective, what changes from one vertical to another vertical, or from one business to another business? Does it become more critical, or how does it? What should an engineer choose if they have to learn more, or both offer similar kind of learning experience?
Say if you look at the transactional services, the experience are similar. The only part when you go to a financial services, it's the compliance checks.
Yeah.
So you become a compliance heavy out there. Your learning will be more learning into, if you are operating in India, what are the RBI guidelines?
Yes.
Right. What are the data laws out there? How should I put it out? And that becomes your priority. And if you're, so for example, you're using a card, right? So the law says saying that you don't put a PCI card locks into your logs, etc. Okay. So that it doesn't become like card info is flowing everywhere and so on. Is that followed in the e-com? Yes.
Right.
Is it that followed in the bank? The answer is yes.
Right.
The difference comes with the transactional reliability of e-com is I can refund the customer if 200 rupees transaction is failed.
You can't do that there.
You can't do that in a bank.
Well, it's more rigid, right? So you have to be very sure about what is.
Yes. So the reliability is the part there, where in case of e-com, it's transactional reliability is in a picture, but the availability and scalability is more in question. Where on the other hand, it's more of reliability and the transactions.
Right.
So compliance comes into the picture. Your cycle gets slower due to compliance. You have to go through an entire test cycle, prove it, then you have to move into the production. Where you may take a certain risk when you are in an e-com. If your services are not associated to a finance, you can just directly go ahead and experiment it out.
Yeah.
Which experimentation you really can't do it out when it comes to financial services.
Right. So, just expanding on this, you mentioned scalability. Now, let's say a lot of engineers thinks that, scalability is something which is typically a function of infrastructure or DevOps, not the function of how you are writing code.
Okay.
So, in terms of concurrency, so most of the time when you ask an interview, I'm not talking about very hotshot engineers, ask a question, that how do you handle scalability or how do you handle concurrency? So, typical answer will be that we'll expand the server vertically or horizontally, right? So, wo badha denge hum, will increase the RAM, will increase the processor stuff. But nobody talks about, how to handle it at a process level, at a thread level, at an application level. So, why do you think it is important for an engineer to have that understanding, and what role does it play?
So I have seen people working for almost 20 years and I realized कि अब जो developer है ना, उसकी knowledge बहुत thin होती जा रही है. They are not even getting into how the things works. It's like this library I'm using, I know
that's it.
I'll pass an input, it will give me output.
They just know how to write an API, that's it.
and that doesn't solve the purpose.
Correct. Right.
So if you talk about scalability or something like, so I'll give you an example. One of the example I had, Microsoft में ना support बहुत बड़ा function होता है. I develop it out, someone will test it out, and someone will support it out. So when the end customer complains it out, support वाला सबसे पहले answer करेगा.
Right.
If they are not able to solve it out, it will go to a test. Test will try to attempt it out. कि भाई ये issue क्यों आया? He'll get the product manager as well involved. They are not able to solve, then only it comes to a dev.
Right.
So one of the interesting thing happened. I was working on a GSX as a product, which was doing a syncing of CRM data between offline Outlook to the server. And one of the ladies said that my system is working very slow. So she reported to some VP sales, and she was getting all the files from all the data from the entire org in that way, right?
Okay.
Support seed it out, then these guys seed it out, test seed it out, and then the PM also looked into it, and they were like, "Ki bhai, inki to machine kharab hai." I was like, "Okay, let me try to see it out," and we went in, and she was like, "Hey Jatinder, I have a i7 box." So in 2007, i7 was new.
It's a pretty
right?
powerful machine.
Yeah. So she was like, "I have an i7. Do you think I need a better one?" And I was like, "Wait, let me first check it out." So we debugged it out, and the issue was simple. There was a lock statement written in our code,
Okay.
which was locking the threads,
Right.
and we just corrected it out, fit it out on that call itself. I built assembly and given it out, and we kind of like released it later on.
Okay.
Had been it like, can we do another server? Can we do a replacement of machine? That's not the answer in that.
Correct.
If you don't deep dive, you will never figure it out. So performance, we usually say, walk through your code, go through in entirety, simplify your use case. Sometimes it's just the use case simplification solves your performance issue. Then you enter into a DB and try to see it out, a bottleneck, look into a plans and rest of the things and SQL and so on. Then you think about scaling out.
Correct.
It should not be the first step is I'll just do a scale out. You'll hide the problem. It will reappear later.
Right. Right. And also similarly, I think that also goes for DS and Algo. So in fact, I have personally faced this, when people say it very upfront to your face, कि DS Algo का मुझे कभी use ही नहीं पड़ा. So I don't know, and a lot of people also complain here, why DS Algo when you don't use it on a day-to-day basis. So what do you think of that? Is it actually required at Microsoft, at Flipkart? You guys used DS Algo or concepts of that on a day-to-day basis?
Always required. See, how you break your code or design your code does matter. Say, again, something which I practiced it out when I was doing a dev, or I was playing a role of a dev lead. So one of the thing I did was a test-driven development.
Yeah.
Right? I got a habit of it.
Yeah.
Then I stopped writing a test cases. Then it was in my mind how to break my code to be perfect for that it is available for all kind of modularity.
Correct.
And if you write it out, your extensibility is there. Your algorithms are kind of like improved. You have planned for those all use cases out there. If you are not doing data structure properly or the designs properly, the concepts are not clear, then you'll end up writing in a procedural language, which is like, I'll continue to write a if else, and then later on I'll find it out, oh, I've written 1,000 lines of code and now I can't read by myself.
Correct.
I need an AI tool to read this.
Right.
So,
but do you think these kind of developers will become redundant? Because that work, so now there are two type of developers, right? One who are, you give them a problem, they'll do it. They somehow Google it, Chat GPT it, Stack Overflow se karke, dhoond karke na, they'll assemble everything and they'll somehow get it done. But they themselves don't know how they have completed this. Right.
ये चीज मैं भी बोलता हूँ दोस्त, ऐसे बहुत सारे डेवलपर है who will become a redundant for this. अगर आपका कोर स्किल सेट यही है कि मैं कोड लिख सकता हूँ, then you are at a risk.
Right.
So the part there is normal routine. I say to the developers, गूगल आज भी एग्जिस्ट करता और आज से 20 साल पहले भी करता। ऐसा नहीं था कि 20 साल पहले लोग गूगल नहीं करते थे। They will do the Google. Now it has become more easier that भाई आप Gemini यूज कर
get
लोगे,
specific, pinpointed answers.
Chat
so it
GPT
gets-
यूज कर लोगे,
correct.
you'll get a pinpointed answer. So
Correct.
you need not to burn your energy to do
Yes,
Google.
yes.
तो वो है पार्ट। बट पहला मोटिव ना डेवलपर का यही होता है। मेरे पास एक क्वेश्चन आया, मतलब आई गॉट अ प्रॉब्लम एंड नाउ माय फर्स्ट मोटिव इज कि यार ये किसी तरह से सॉल्व कर दूं मैं। मैंने गूगल किया, सब कुछ किया, कुछ कोड स्निपेट उठाया, वहां पे डाल दिया और वो चल गया। इफ यू आर जस्ट अ कोड राइटर आउट देयर, यू विल एंड देयर। बट इफ यू आर अ डेवलपर,
You're a good engineer.
you're a good engineer, you will then do a deep dive how it is working
Right.
it out.
Why is it working?
Yes. And how it is working.
Right.
Can I do a refactoring of it? Can I improve on it?
Correct.
That is the part where your learning starts. The V0 is always same for a coder or a developer. This is how you differentiate between a coder and developer.
And these coder will probably and most likely will be replaced by a lot of AI agents.
Agree.
Because they can still write code mindlessly without having the context, right?
True. Agree. That's the rest. The people who are at just doing or their skill set is they are coder, they'll go stale sooner or later.
How do you think, developers or coders, they can, use AI, Gen AI, to their advantage?
Gen AI really helps out. I have tried it out, Gemini, for my own self. Till the time you know exactly what you wanted out of it, it's good too.
Right.
It will generate a lot of code for you, and you can help. Say, basic idea is if you are a developer who understand what you really wanted out of a system, how the system really
Right.
works, how the different things are being put
You
up
need
in
to
terms
ask
of
right
your domain.
questions.
Yes.
And give the entire context to the AI model as well.
You will be becoming a more productive by doing that.
Right.
That help is there. I have tried it out and I kind of loved it out.
Yes, yes.
यार मैं अकेला ही काफी हूँ, मतलब काफी चीजों में।
हाँ, couple of weeks back I just did a small POC and I was really amazed. Within over a weekend, I was able to write an entire backend application and it was so fast. I just thought, I don't think I need anyone. I'll get it done myself.
Yeah. So that's the same feeling I got it.
Yeah.
When I started with, I was like, अगर ये tool मुझे मिल जाता है, then maybe I can go back to the coding.
Yes, कि करना क्या है. Probably the same instruction as an architect or a principal engineer. You already know what the architecture will look like, what the design will look like,
True.
what the schema will look like, and if you can just document it, give it to AI, then probably you'll get everything in a similar, more or less in a similar way. Folder structure बना दिया, सारा कुछ बना करके दे दिया, then it just gives you a very nice code.
मैंने तो पूरा का
टेस्ट
पूरा
केसेस भी दे दो आप उसमें ना,
करवाया था,
and you just give the test cases as well. Then it even covers each and every scenarios as well. So yeah,
so that part is there. I agree on that if you are an intelligent developer and you know the context of the things, what you really wanted to do, AI tools are gonna helping out to them. But it puts a rest to our coders.
Yeah, right. So why do you think, what will happen to the coders?
What will happen to the coders?
What are your thoughts? How do you think this is going to pan out?
So the basic idea there is they have to take a challenge to pivot out.
Assuming they don't do that.
You are saying there are no options. You just have to jump.
What I am trying to say is, when there was an industrial revolution, lot of jobs were scraped. It just went away into the thin air. But ऐसा नहीं हुआ कि unemployment हो गई, right? कुछ alternative आया. They started doing something else. So do you think
वो pivot ही है,
right?
कि भाई आपको pivot करना पड़ेगा. In terms of these won't be highly paid jobs now. So if you are a coder and you are getting a good pay, expect it out, you need to pivot, and you may need to compromise on the salaries out.
Right.
So the idea there is, let's say if you're a coder, you can pivot to set another role, like a domain, tech supports, or the tester even.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to change your profiles.
Yeah. Okay. And how about testers?
Testers who are doing a manual testing, they will go stale again.
Mm.
There is no value coming out of it. If you are an intelligent tester, you can use AI tools again to build all your scenarios context properly and get a lot of testing done out there.
Right.
So it will now, for a tester, it will become more specific knowledge into automation and the domain.
Yeah.
So if you are a good domain expert, you can leverage AI tools to generate that automation. And because automation is generated by a machine, it may not be perfect. So you should be able to see through it and correct it out.
Right, there is still hallucination is still there, right? So it's still not perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have to again pivot. There is no other option.
How about, in the last 6 months to 1 year, I have seen that lot of AI engineering roles is sprouting up. AI engineers, AI architect. And I think if you read the job descriptions, it's mostly focused around Gen AI. So can you throw some light on what exactly are these AI engineers, and are you also hiring folks for a similar role?
We don't use a Gen AI in our field first, so on. So we use a AI. It's more of image reading, manipulating
core
it out.
AI.
Yeah, so it's a core AI. It's nothing to do with the Gen AI as of now.
Right.
So I'm not too sure Gen AI can be leveraged out there. If let's take a use case or example out there. If you are into a security testing, a lot of scenario can be generated by Gen AI, and that will help out to the things out there. In my company, at least, we don't have any. We were not able to identify any use case where we can fit in a Gen AI.
Okay.
So we said, till the time we don't identify a use case, we won't use the Gen AI.
Okay. So any from the stakeholder, investors, management, there is no pressure or there is no desperation कि we कुछ तो करना है. Everyone is doing that. Everyone is becoming, going there. Why not we?
Yeah. So there is always वो कहते हैं ना कि हम रेस में रह गए हैं. That feeling is always
that
there.
FOMO.
That FOMO is always there. But so far, we kept a simple context out there from a technology perspective. If there is no use case identified for a Gen AI in our system, then we won't be using it out. First identify the use case, then we'll use. There are Gen AI pockets which we use it out, but again, it's more as a user. For example, our media team or a streaming team uses a Gen AI to generate a content and so on, right? But that's a very specific use case. That tool exists. We are not building that tool and so on. There are a lot of companies who have invested a lot in R&D of doing that, right? So it's within our business. Till the time we don't identify a specific use case for a Gen AI, we won't be consuming it.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the team and culture. So how big is your team at Arya?
Okay. So we call everyone who can know or talk about machines or laptop or anything engineer. We call it out as a tech. So there is a 92 people team, which includes all IT support, tech support, QAs, product managers, engineering, everyone.
Got it. So now, let's take an example. There is a very good engineer who is, let's say, SD2. SD3. Now there are two paths. That person, he wants to go towards or move towards, let's say, a management role. But you as a leader think that, he's not the right fit for that. You have seen this person working in a certain way, and you think that, this person is better fit for an IC role. But the other person is quite adamant about कि मेरे को वहीं जाना है. I'm sure you must have faced a similar situation.
Yeah.
So how do you, handle that situation?
So the first step is let's talk about it, and we go through all the strengths and weaknesses out there. We try to convince the person saying that your strength is on this end, you should leverage that more. Uh, let's say the person does come back and admit, नहीं नहीं मेरे को तो यही करना है. Then we kind of like give us certain experiences to them in a smaller level out there, how you can taste. So we already spoke about what is a criteria, right? So I say that it involves this, and if it involves X, Y, Z, I'll give you a certain things to experience out the X, certain experiences to kind of like work on Y, and so on. After this, if you come back that you really liked it out, then we'll talk about how to kind of like grow. We will.
Either you are right or they are right. So, either way, I think it's a win-win for.
Yeah. So it's like we ask people same way that we don't give you the role as a gift. It's like you work for that role.
You earn that role.
You earn that, and then that role is yours.
Yeah, makes sense. Got it. And then you either, depending on how they do it. And so does it also happens, let's say for that person, he feels or thinks that he has really justified the role of a manager, but as a leader, you think that's not the case.
Normal routine, both will be thinking in a one side if you are having a conversation regularly. This condition happens that the one person is thinking that he has been doing good, and the other person is
and not just talking about this particular instance, but in general, in terms of performance as well, reviews as well.
That always happens.
Yeah.
I as a person, as a human behavior tendency is that I have performed very well, right? So normal part out there is I ask people, write it out what you have delivered and how you have delivered. Both the part will be looked into, what and how, and the performance we tell it very clearly to the people. It's a comparator. So if there are 10 SD2, I usually give in every part simple example. अगर क्लास में 10 स्टूडेंट है, not all 10 students will be ranked as a first.
Correct, right.
It will be always ranked from first to 10. And this is how the life works.
So a lot of companies post-COVID, and abhi jo recent wo hua tha, so that market went down, right? Market crash ke baad. So a lot of companies started with this approach ki, they'll do a quarterly or a half yearly or an annual review, and they'll lay off the bottom 10% of the employees. You guys follow something similar at Arya as well?
No, so far we are not following on a bell curve in terms of laying off. We follow the bell curve for sure.
Okay.
Which is your performance are defined into a category, let's say A, B, C, D. These are the rankings which we do it out. It's on a bell curve.
Okay.
20% top performer, mid performer, 70%, then 10%. Kind of like somewhat met expectation, and last 10% who didn't met the expectation.
Okay.
So this is there, but we don't lay off.
Okay. And how do you think has the market dynamics changed post-COVID? COVID, I think it was literally a bull run for engineers. It was literally a employees market compared to what it is right now. I think some salary corrections has also happened since then. So
it is still going on, I think.
Yeah. And do you think the engineers are able to adjust to this change, or they are still in that mindset?
I have spoken to a lot of people, and I still feel that people live in that dilemma that it is still a way high market.
And probably if not now, it will happen soon. Do you think that will happen again? Keeping that, Gen AI in context.
No, it's not gonna be like the same kind of like bulk hirings which happened in a COVID time will happen again. At least I don't believe in. Because I felt it out like saying that market correction is bound to happen, and with the AI, there will be a certain roles which will be diminishing over in a time. Not now, but over a time, yes. So if you look at the incoming of a talent, it's huge, right?
Right.
So your salaries will be always in negotiation
Yeah.
with that.
So it's going to remain an employer market
It is going to
for
remain
quite some time.
at least for the next 2-3 years.
Yeah.
I can't picturize more than that.
Right. Obviously, even we don't know, how Gen AI is panning out. We don't know what's going to happen in next 6 months. A lot of innovation and a lot of new, I would say, breakthroughs is happening almost every month.
Yes.
So, Abhi, you just mentioned a few roles will be diminishing in next couple of years. What do you think could those roles be?
Again, we spoke about this coder and only
Okay.
tester in that way, right? So these are the core engineering roles which I believe are at a risk, and people have to kind of like upskill them, do the pivot if you are not
Yeah.
able to do upskill.
But there are a lot of small companies who actually employs only coders, not engineers. Right? Even if you talk about a lot of small product companies, they have raised some small amount of seed fund, maybe 2-3 CR or some of that sorts of amount. They really can't afford very good engineers. They still want people on the lower side of the budget. So, what will happen to that?
So ultimately, even those small companies really wanted to build a product, right? If I can hire two smart engineers with the help of AI who can deliver equivalent to
Right.
10 people, why would I hire 10 people out there?
So at Arya, is there a mix of not just Arya? Let's talk about all the good product companies, Flipkart, Amazon. Do these companies also have coders, or is it just very good engineers?
We do have. It's
Okay.
always a mixed bag.
Okay.
Say at a current stage, you will always have a mixed bag thing which is going on, right?
Okay. And even at companies like Flipkart and Amazon.
At a Flipkart as well, you will find always a few cases. The number of so basically ratio changes.
Right. I think that number completely flips. The ratio flips.
Yes.
Okay. So, sir, Abhina, there are a lot of discussion going on around 70 hours, 100 hours, 40 hours work week. A lot of good known folks have talked about it. So, what is your thought around that? Do you really think being, on top of the game, being the top performer or top 0.1% in your field requires 100 hours of work, or can that be achieved even, by having a very good sorted work-life balance or putting in just 40 hours work week?
You can have the growth for sure with the 40 hours a week, but that doesn't mean that you'll grow at the rate with the perspective of the top performer who's burning a more hours. The natural part, he is generating a more value to the company.
Correct.
Again, the
Linear growth versus exponential growth is what we are talking about.
It's as simple as
Right.
that the person who is delivering more, faster, quality is going to be promoted faster
Right.
than the person who is generating a slower growth. And then it becomes more of a perspective in a life where I'm more concerned saying that I wanted to spend a 40 hours, 60 hours, or 70 hours. So when I was working or my team works, I always have seen the people who are enjoying the work, they don't care for hours.
You don't
They're
count
never
hours.
counted. It's more like I have this problem and I'm not sleeping over till the time this is not done.
Right.
So it's kind of like I love that rather than saying that I'm burning hours. It's more of I'm enjoying solving that problem,
Right,
and I really don't care for the time.
Got it.
वो एक part रहता है, but that's mindset of that guy who's already kind of like in a mode that मुझे तो solve करना है कुछ भी हो जाए.
Right. So, do you think this mindset, when we earlier spoke about coders and developers, right?
Yes.
So, do you think there is any specific trait कि प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करने वाला जो ट्रेट है दैट इज इन डेवलपर वर्सेस वो कोडर में नहीं है?
वो कोडर में नहीं होता, इसीलिए I specifically said that I used the word coder. उसका रीजन यही है कि he is more focused towards आप टास्क बताओ क्या है, I'll get the task done.
उन्हें टिकट्स चाहिए, जीरा पे बना के दे दो मेरे को, मैं
बना
टिकट
के
कर
दे दो, मैं
दूंगा,
खत्म
बस
कर दूंगा,
correct.
मेरा टाइम हो गया है, I'm going home, I'm happy.
उन्हें
So
आप
it's
ऐसे
his perspective.
वर्बली प्रॉब्लम डिस्कस करोगे तो उन्हें समझ आएगा भी नहीं, उन्हें टिकट बना दो, टेस्ट केसेस लिख दो एंड दे विल जस्ट
Yeah.
in a box, they'll solve it in a box. सही
True.
है, right?
So that's what we call as a coder. Developer is आप उसको business problem दे दो, he will do everything on it,
Correct,
saying that
correct.
what all I need to do ensure that the things are moving in right direction. So now he is enjoying or participating in that particular part.
Right.
एक कहीं पे मैंने कोई बुक पे मैनेजमेंट की एक स्टोरी पढ़ी थी छोटी सी. So the lesson was that there were 3 people who were working on carving the stone. Right? Priest went and asked it out to a first person. He said कि भाई क्या कर रहे हो? तो कहता मैं पत्थर तोड़ रहा हूँ. 10 रुपए मिलेंगे आज के.
Right.
दूसरे के पास गए, दूसरे ने बोला आई एम एंजॉइंग कार्विंग द स्टोन. तीसरे के पास गए, तीसरे ने बोला मैं ये कैथेड्रल बना रहा हूँ. So this is a mindset.
Correct.
The game of mindset only. How do you see or perceive?
That's the difference between a coder and a developer or an engineer. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. We haven't spoken about, Arya, which is, I think, you are breathing it day in and day out today. So what Arya does?
Okay, so Arya is in a multiple set of services in agri supply chain. Okay. पहला पार्ट है हमारा, we are running a warehousing for the agri produce. Then we are partnering with the banks to do the collateral within those warehouses.
Yeah.
We have registered our own NBFC, so we provide a loan where the bank cannot cater. Right? So not everywhere the bank reaches it.
Right.
And then we have the trading platform where we connect a buyer and seller.
Okay.
We solve their payment solutions out there. So we provide a loan and the payment solutions to the buyer and suppliers.
Right.
So a surety of transaction is living with the area in that case. Apart from that, we do more of a FPO, work management for a farmer.
Okay.
Satellite monitoring of the farms out there. Data is one of the key part out there where we predict it out. What is the yield coming out, where it is coming out in India, how much the crop is healthy or not, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Then there are a lot of other things which we do in a warehouse.
So typically, this space, I might be wrong, doesn't excite engineers a lot. उन्हें लगता है कि it's more of an operational thing. It's not tech driven but tech enabled. So what kind of engineering problems you are solving at Arya?
Okay, so operational tool is the one problem,
Yes.
which is always there, right? So
And I think it's operations at scale, so that in itself become a very huge engineering problem.
So operation itself is a complex in a nature.
Yes.
Example is if you work in a e-commerce warehouse, आपके पास ना हर चीज लेबल होती है, टैग्ड होती है, and it is walking.
Correct.
Where in agri warehouse, it's all in the bags. तो बोरे रखे हैं, एक के ऊपर एक रखे हैं. Everything is moving in the bulk quantities and so on. There are GSTs, tax compliance based on a wheat or a variety of the commodity and so on. So all of those complexity comes from the transactional part. What becomes important? Let's say, how do you use a AI for auditing those warehouses? How do you reduce your operational cost by having a more monitoring of those systems? How do you have rate analytics or prediction for a yield when you are having a satellite data, right? NBFC covers its own bank compliance and everything, right? So it's a banking system in simple way. It's a loan management system. So transactionability is the core part out there. Then the trade comes in. Trade also, it's like interesting pieces are there from the transaction, platform, scale, AI, and analytics.
Yeah.
So everything comes into the picture. For example, if you wanted to buy something, right, there has to be identification of a right supply out there.
Can you tell some of the problems that has already been solved and which was, and the impact it created?
हाँ, कुछ हैं जैसे क्वालिटी एनालिसिस. अगर आप कभी गए होगे मार्केट में, अनाज मंडी में, तो वहाँ पे वो क्वालिटी कैसे असेस करता है? ट्रेडर हाथ में लेता है, बोलता दिखता है, अरे ये है इसकी क्वालिटी, राइट? अगर वो देख के बोल सकता है, that does mean camera can also tell the quality by seeing it out, right? So quality assessment is one of the big part out there, which a camera can do, and it's all based on analytics. So we train it out for a different crops. We have solved it for few are still pending to be solved for. Uh, Warehouse monitoring based on, so entire warehouse monitoring in terms of movement, what is happening, right?
In the warehouse.
In the warehouse.
Yeah.
That is tracked by a camera.
Okay.
What is not solved? Let's say I wanted to audit a warehouse. We said that why not a wearable camera can be put up, and once the people walk through the warehouse, we can do a back counting or a stock take kind of stuff, right? This is not solved yet.
Yeah.
But something in pipeline, what we can achieve out. Loan management, when we talk about, again, it's more of assessing the risk, right? Those are the big goals out there. How do you assess the risk out there? We do have a customer data with us for repeatable part out there. Market rates are there for a commodity. How do you measure risk? How do you generate those margins? Everything is to be built in the system, right? Then when it comes to a trade, it's again buyer and seller analytics, which plays an important role. How do you experiment it out to do a better catchment in that?
Got it.
So all of those things are there.
Pretty interesting problems, and I think pretty different problems that is being, that you guys are doing at Arya.
True. So at a farmer level, when it comes like a crop intelligence, satellite monitoring, it does make a lot of difference out there.
The impact is huge,
Impact is huge.
Correct.
So for engineering, if you are a good engineer, there is a lot to be learned in the tech space. Even for a business, there is a lot to be explored. There are like, how do we increase our reach to a more farmer? Sustainable practices is some topic which needs to be done out there. If you can, how do a farmer gain some more value? If his produce is organic and he can prove it out that it's organic and it reaches to end customer as organic, then he can make a more money in it, right? So it's how do you generate a sustainable practices for farmer? How do you trace it through a agri supply chain? Some interesting problem to be solved, still not solved.
Right.
तो बहुत सारी ऐसी चीजें हैं.
Got it. Interesting. So guys, if you are looking for a change and looking to solve some very interesting engineering problems, Arya is the place to be.